morning, everyone. My name is Ayo Sopitan. I'm the CEO of Metalex Commodities. We're a US-based private mining junior that's operating in Africa. I was very tempted to scrap my presentation and respond to Senator Murkowski's comments about Zambia. But I think what's probably better is to offer to sit and engage with her and her team if they're still here, and maybe at some other time in the future. But so yeah, we should certainly think about energy independence and energy dominance and all of that, as has been discussed by everyone that's spoken so far. But in order to achieve that, we're going to need to look at allies, look at countries all over the world where we can actually get these minerals at scale. So there are 35 critical minerals on the most recent critical minerals list. It'd be quite difficult, to be very difficult, to actually have just total domestic production. So we should look at Africa, and the reasons for why Africa is important is basically there are many permits that already exist. There are mines that already exist that are producing today. And these minerals, some of them are destined for Western markets, so it makes sense to actually to provide opportunities and pathways to the market. There's a lot of the, so for cobalt, for example, 70% of the world's known cobalt is in Africa, right? 21% for copper, and several other metals are quite abundant in Africa. And what needs to happen is we need to go and make sure that we can get access to these metals and support some of the American companies that are already working there, which we are one of those. So selfish statement there. China has been active, and they have what can only be described as a long head start, right? For example, in infrastructure projects, China has their hands in 78 ports in Africa. That's not by accident. That's a country that's thinking about now midterm and long-term goals, right? So as opposed to the U.S., where we have our hands in Libido and our eyes in Mauritania, and that's it. So we need to think about why these things are. But it has to be pointed out, and this is something that we see on the ground as operators. The locals in Africa are looking for alternatives, and it's actually the right time for U.S. firms to direct resources, capital, and efforts to the African continent. And actually, on the point of alternatives, very recently in Zambia, there was a tailings dam accident that poisoned one of the most important waterways in Zambia. It hasn't killed anyone yet, but it will. It's going to be, hopefully it makes the news all over the world. So if we're going to operate in Africa, I personally believe that U.S. soft power to change hearts and minds is one way to make headway in Africa. And we have to invest quickly and at all levels. I'll tell you what I mean. So what the Chinese have done quite well is they've invested at the infrastructure level, at mining majors, in mining juniors, and even in small-scale players, right? So you have individual entrepreneurs that leave for Africa with their backpacks filled with $1 million given to them by the Chinese Exim Bank, and they start operating, right? The U.S. will have to, we would have to do similar things, invest quickly and at all levels, and lead with American values. So I had a professor in grad school that would say, don't engage in any business practice that you find that you would be embarrassed to see on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. I think that's a very American idea, to care about perception and how things look, and doing the right thing, even if the motivations are not necessarily altruistic. The fact that we care about optics is actually it's a useful thing, and the fact that we also care about justice and equity and these types of things, right? So. And in our case, this is basically all about our project. So we have 350 square kilometers of license area in Zambia. It's a copper cobalt project that at the end of the year we should be processing about 2 million tons a year of ore to produce 120,000 metric tons of copper concentrates, copper precipitate, and 12,000 tons of cobalt concentrates, which represents about 2.2% of global cobalt production. We are leading with, we've built sort of a win-win model, in our opinion, to try to set up a situation where host communities actually can participate in the prosperity of what we're building. We think that the idea that it's either Alaska or Africa is a false mutual exclusivity that's being set up. I think those two things can happen at the same time. So for example, we made a commitment to produce on a carbon neutral basis. So we're actually setting up our own carbon projects, because the idea is, the mine might not be able to employ everyone, but carbon projects can actually bring carbon finance into the community and help provide additional means of livelihood. We're building affordable housing with mine overburden, and we're also training locals to become suppliers into the mine. We think that our approach, it will end up creating a win-win, and we want to be a model to basically show how to win in Africa, where the US as a country, we get the critical minerals that we need, the host communities, the governments get what they want, and the companies that lead the charge, the entrepreneurs, the investors, also get the returns that they're looking for. Thank you very much.